Mix an intermediate color and paint at least 6 sections of a paper in a monochromatic color scheme, mixing in white to make tints and blacks to make shades.
Time to start those monochromatic color scheme ice cream cones. The first thing I want to talk about is supplies. And so if you do not have watercolor paper, you'll need to use a thick paper that can stand up under the pressure of painting. And then I prefer acrylic or tempera paints for this project, but if all you have is a watercolor set, I'm going to show you how to use that first to create a value scale. So make sure you have plenty of water for this activity. The first thing I have asked you to do is to create an intermediate color. And intermediate colors are between the primary and the secondary color. When you mix red and orange, for example, you get red-orange. When you mix red and violet together, you get red-violet. When you mix yellow and green together, you get yellow-green. So you'll notice that there's that formula there of mixing the primary and the secondary color that are adjacent, that means next door to each other on the color wheel. And then the new name is the primary color first and the secondary color second. And so intermediate colors, also called tertiary colors, are really easy to make. You just find your favorite primary color and then find the adjacent or right next door secondary color. And so for example, if your favorite color is blue, you find green next door to it, mix those together to make blue-green.
Painting with watercolors to make a value scale.
I am going to use purple, also called violet. That is a secondary color. So I add some water to the cake and transfer that color into a little section of the lid. And then I take the primary color that's adjacent to it, which is blue. So this is really cool because the way that these containers are set up, these paint cakes are set up, it has the secondary and the primary adjacent to each other already. All you need to do is choose 2 cakes that are next to each other. You'll notice that they have brown and black at the 2 extremes, so watch out for those. But then any 2 colors next to each other after that will make an intermediate color: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, the colors of the rainbow. So I'm going to get the blue cake wet and I'm going to start adding that to the purple and mix. So I have created the intermediate color of blue-violet. So there's my intermediate color. This is my blue-violet. I want to make sure that I get a lot of paint on this spot because this is the hue, also known as the color, that I'm going to be using as the basis for the rest of my project. The monochromatic, we can only change the value scale. We cannot change the hue. So we're not going to be touching any of the other colors for now. A monochromatic color scheme, which we talked about last project, is all the different values of one particular color. So in my case, if I am using blue-violet, then I am going to create all the different values of blue-violet. When we create a value scale of a color, we're going from a very dark shade, as it's called when you add a color to black, all the way to a very light tint, which is when you add white to a color. In order to make another section that is a tint, well, you'll notice that nowhere on this paint cake is there a white. And that's because watercolor paints are a little bit different. In order to make a lighter value or a tint, we are going to add the white of the paper. And so all I'm doing is I'm dripping extra water onto my color in the tray to dilute it. Ooh, get some science terms. And as it's diluted with water, you'll be able to see the paper through the color better than before. To make an even lighter tint, we simply add more water. I'm actually just going to add some extra water to the paper. It's not lightening up as much as I had hoped, and I'm actually going to try to make this medium tint a little bit darker I can add a little bit more of the color to this to make it clearly in the middle hue, this tint, and this lighter tint. A darker hue, I am simply going to add the tiniest bit of black. Black is a very powerful neutral color, so you have to be careful. I'm requiring you to make at least 6 different shapes, and I'm using my eyes to kind of determine how light or dark this is. So this becomes my medium shade. For when you add black to a color, you create a shade. This time I'm not going to be super careful because I want it to be a darker value. Even more black to the color. Notice that I'm not really washing my brush very much because I'm using the color that I have on my brush already. We're going from lightest to darkest. And it looks like this one might need a little bit of help. It doesn't quite look dark enough. We're creating a scale. That is a gradient that goes from light to dark. I'm also not adding a lot of water to the shades because I want them to be as dark as they can be, and I don't want to see through to the white. I am going to leave that to dry. Be sure to clean off your lid before you close it up, or let it dry.
Painting with acrylics or tempera paints.
Moving right along to the tempera paints, this one I feel is a little bit more fun. So if you have tempera paints or any sort of viscous paint like that, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can choose which ones you want, like red and orange are going to make red-orange. And that is what I'm going to choose.
Paint with acrylics.
Got the red, the orange, the black, and the white.
Create 6 sections on the page.
In order to make 6 different shapes of the same size, let's just roll the paper like a tube and press it down. And then you fold those 3 sections in half to make a total of 6 different sections. Now in one of these sections I am going to be creating my hue, a little bit of red, a little bit of orange, and start the process of mixing them together to make the intermediate color. Red, orange, there it is. I'm going to wipe some on the next section, even though I'm going to be adding white to it. I want to make sure that I have enough color for this section. And a little bit for that section. It's going to be the lightest. Time to make some tints. I'm going to add white to the color to get a tint. Start the mixing process. I think there's enough contrast between those now. Time to wash my brush. You want to make sure that you wash off the white before you start adding the black. I need to create my analogous color again. The tiniest drop of black. Because remember, black is so powerful, we don't want this one to be too dark. And when you mix orange and blue together, you get a beautiful neutral color of brown, and I feel like that's happening a little bit here. Remember to add the tiniest bit of black, or you will have to start over because it will completely take over your color scheme. Once again, I need to consider the value scale, and it does look like it goes from lightest to darkest. So I think that I'm ready to let this dry as I go on to my next step.
Week 2. Cut out each section of the value scale into ice cream cone scoop shapes.
So I'm going to use some of this cardboard from my last project and create a scoop from that.
Create a template with a thick piece of paper or cardboard.
That's a pretty good size for my scoop, but scoops are not generally squares or rectangles. So I'm going to make a nice rounded top and maybe some drips at the bottom. You can always just use a thick piece of paper for this. That is a little bit too big. Compare and contrast. When you are tracing something, remember to hold down the object that you're using and then press against the edge. We're not trying to redraw this. You're just pressing your pencil against the edge of the shape as you drag it along. So the first thing that I suggest you do is separate the scoop shapes from each other before you start cutting out the shape. Now it is time to cut out the scoop shapes. Notice the way I just open and close my scissors, but I'm using my other hand to steer the paper into scissors mouth. I used a piece of that cardboard to make my cone.
Week 3. Organize, overlap, and decorate the scoop shapes and glue them down to make a collage.
Time for the collage. To make this look like it overlaps, we're going to glue the bottom thing first. I think that a glue stick would work okay. I prefer to use liquid glue. Notice that I'm only putting glue around the edge. The middle of the cardboard is already attached to the cardboard, so we don't have to put any glue there. All we have to do is glue down the edges. Make sure it stays stuck. Find either the lightest or the darkest scoop shape, depends on what you want, and glue that down so that it is slightly overlapping the cone. Hold it down for about 30 seconds or as long as it takes to dry. Take the next lightest or next darkest, always going in order, from either light to dark or dark to light. Value! You can make it a little bit overlapping, you can make it a lot overlapping, you can make it look like it's falling off by going to the side. I'm going to go with that. Now make sure I am going in order with my value scale. Line them up from light to dark, you get a gradient. This is what we mean when we say value, the lightness or darkness of a color or hue. Value! Sorry, I'll stop torturing you. I noticed that this piece is flopping up a little bit. I can put a little bit of glue under there and hold it down until it stays stuck. This allows your project to look neat and tidy and also stay firmly attached. Now how you finish this is up to you. A cherry on top, you want to add sprinkles? Add sprinkles by gluing extra pieces onto it, and you could make the background as interesting as you want. I'm excited to see what you come up with. I don't want you to copy exactly what I do, but these are just some ideas, and I hope you have a lot of fun with this project.
remember, submit a pic of your finished artwork to the Monochromatic ice cream cone upload assignment on Canvas.
Meow? Bye!